Hello, it's time for Combat Patrol Carnage. So as you know, I have been off ill with a rather bad cold, and well, I'm not 100%, but I'm 89.9, so getting there, last 10% to go. So what I'm here to do is we're going to actually do some catching up. So I'm not bringing you one, but I'm bringing you 2 issues of Combat Patrol today. And we're going to kick things off with 28. It's a pretty straightforward issue. There's no building, no painting. We're straight into articles. So we got 4 articles of lore to read, a short story, and a naming ceremony. Plus we have a couple more pages of the core rules to go over. And then we're going to get into issue 29, which has the paint guide for our jet bikes, as well as a couple of pages of lore, and we get to try out our jet bikes by taking them into battle. So of course these issues came with frames, and well, they are here. 4 rather identical looking jet bike frames, but we have P2, the central frame, and P3, the final end frame. So that gives us our 6 jet bikes, plus we of course have our flying stands and bases. Then we'll get into issue 29, which is going to be a bit more of an in-depth video because we still have that paint guide we're going to cover. We have our lore, and we also have a game to play. So it shouldn't be too bad. I'll try and do the lore and the painting guide in one, as it's a fairly simple, straightforward paint guide. Once we get 3 layers of Mephiston Red, it's a simple matter of picking out the details, and that's pretty much it for the moment. And then we've got the couple of pages of lore to read, so that shouldn't be too hard to get through. Then we're into our gaming articles, so we've got a couple more pages for the core rules, and we try out our Wind Riders in a little game to see how they do. And then hopefully with issue 30, when we get back on track for normal weekly videos, I'll be able to do a full Combat Patrol game, as we'll have the complete Combat Patrol of the Eldari. And since I'm still behind on painting the Tyranids, they're going to have to face the Space Marines. So before we hit the table, don't forget to do all the usual. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and drop me a comment down below. Love hearing back from you guys. It goes a massive way to help this channel out. And yeah, it's nice to have a little natter. Finally, Combat Patrol Carnage is proudly sponsored by warbay.shop, your one-stop supply for all your hobby needs. They stock everything you need for getting started, from your models to your hobby materials and your gaming equipment as well. They stocked a lot. And they've also started stocking the full range of Games Workshop products. So if you want some extra items that you might have trouble getting hold of in your local store, check them out. They might be able to pick them up for you. There's a link for warbay.shop in the video description, and who knows, you might find yourself a hobby project for a bit of a bargain. Right then, that's issue 28 out of the way. Let's move on to issue 29. We've got to paint our Wind Rider jet bikes. Then we've got a couple of pages of lore and some new core rule pages, and then we'll hit our game as we try out the Wind Riders against some Termagants. So here we are then with issue 29 and our final frame. So P3 here, as we can see. Final frame, so the only difference on this frame is the torso, the head, and the front fairing here. Other than that, yeah, I have our jet bikes ready now. We can build these guys, and then we'll be able to come back to this issue and get them painted. So let's go through the full contents of this issue, and then I'm off to build my models. So, full contents of this issue, we have our paint guide. We look at the Cabals, Cults, and Covens of the Drukhari, as well as their home city of Camorra. Then play, we look at the command phase. We have our Combat Patrol record for the Eldari. We have a look at our Wind Riders tactic page, and then we have Strike Force as the Wind Riders face off against some Tyranids. So quickly, let's have a look at our Wind Riders before we bring in our models and paint them. So we got to get 3 coats of Mephiston Red down on our models, picking out a lot of the black details with Abaddon Black. So we got a lot of the underside of the jet bike here. It needs to be picked out, which I've only just realised I should have picked out way more than what I've picked out. Luckily, I've still got 4 more models to paint, so I'll try and correct myself. There's lots of little black details on the riders as well. We've got these cables on underneath their arms. We've got the faceplate. We've got the bits connecting the vanes on the back. His seat straps there as well. Corax white is used to pick out the helmet. Lead belcher is used to pick out some of the silver details. Mechanic blue used to pick out the eyes. Nuln oil used to shade the silver, as well as the head in Corax white. And then relayering it with Corax white to bring out that colour again. Then after we've painted, we can glue our models down. So put a bit of glue in the hole there, and then you can stick them to their flying stands. So yeah, like I said, I've got a lot of detail I've missed, so we should be doing the entire control panel area in black. It's just from the bottom of the control panel back that needs to stay red. I've left pretty much everything here red. Yeah, so, alright, as I said, I'm off to build my last two, and I'll be right back with them so we can get them painted. Okay, so we're at the paint desk. We've got our models undercoated with 3 coats of Mephiston red. Now we're ready to start doing our first few colours. As you'll notice, I've left the guns off. This is to make painting all of the detail a lot easier, as the magazine does show a lot gets skipped, which is kind of a bad thing, especially if you're looking for detail. But here we go then. Right, we'll kick things off with Abaddon Black, and we got a lot of details to pick out with this. So there's the underside of the fairing, we've got the seat covers, we've got pipes on the rider, the face mask on the rider, gaps between the fins, and there's details on the guns as well. So the reason I've left the guns off is they block a lot of the detail here and make it really hard to get your brush in. So what we need to do is, first off, we'll start right up underneath, as we want to get this part of the underside. Then we want to do the entire console area here. This bit down around here as well. Get the top area of the console and the closest part to the console of the handlebars there as well. And on this rider I've got the exposed screen, so we'll pick out the console in black. Then we've got to paint the entirety of these raised areas here, trying to be neat around the edge, but if you do make any mistakes, just go back with Mephiston red, which we'll do at the end anyway. So other details, we've got the straps on the rider, we've got these little cables on the underside of their arms, we've got the face masks, and of course we've got what exposed parts of the seat we can actually get. Just being careful around the body, and finding any gaps in between the fins. On the guns, on our scaff laser, the only piece we need to paint black is this raised detail here that attaches to the underside of the bike. But on our shuriken catapults, we have these sections here, as well as the top parts of them here. And again, that raised detail. Okay, the Abaddon Black details now picked out. We can move on to our next colour. And our next colour is just Corax White, which is going to be on the helmets. So not a large detail to do, so won't need a lot. But you will need a couple of layers, as white doesn't cover very well over red. So a little bit ready on our palette. and onto the jet bike riders. So being careful around the black we've completed. I'll let that dry and come back in for a second layer. So next up, after the white, we're moving on to our lead belcher, which is our one and only metallic we're using. This is just going to be for the engine, some of the smaller details like the pedals, the handlebars, the buttons on the console, as well as the intake vent and some details on the weapons. And again, over red, we're going to want 2 layers, as silver doesn't cover all that well. So onto our bike then. We got the exhaust. Don't want to paint all of it, just this end part here. Don't forget to get the inside as well. We've got the pedals here, the air intake, handlebar grips, the little raised details on the back of the gloves, and the buttons and screen there on the console. And if you can reach it, each rider has a spirit stone housing. We'll paint these silver as well. On the guns, the scatter laser, we want to paint this entire midsection here silver. Leaving either end red. We also want to pick out the raised details on the end here. And on the shuriken catapults, you want to pick out the raised central detail. With our silver dry, we're on to our last colour, which is Macragge blue, and this is just to dot the eyes. And if you can reach the spirit stone housings, you can dot that with a little bit of blue for the spirit stone as well. Making sure we've got a nice thin point to our brush, and onto the helmet we go. Just getting it into that eye socket. We've got an exposed screen here, so we'll pick that out with a bit of blue as well. And that spirit stone, there we go. Probably want a second layer of the blue over the black just to get a strong enough colour. So up next I'm going to do a quick tidy up with the red. And then we can move on to our last stage, which is to simply apply a light wash to areas and then relayer the white. There we go, with that done, we're ready to move on to our final colour, which is a quick shade of Nuln Oil to all the silver details, as well as the helmets. So we'll just apply this all over the helmet. And on the silver details, so the back of the hands, the console, the exhaust, and of course the pedals and the air intake. And with the wash dry, we can return to Corax White for our final colour, just to relayer the helmets. So, picking out the raised detail. And then being careful to avoid the shadows. Now all our colours done, we've cleaned up our contact points, so we can glue in our guns, put a little bit of glue in there and a little bit of glue in the ball joint socket. So the one with the raised screen is going to be my squad leader, or Rain, and she's going to get the scatter laser. And then we can stick in flying stand, leave her to dry, and then our twin shuriken catapult pilot rider, and get some glue. We'll stick guns in place, followed by the base. Let the glue dry while we move on to our lore articles. So before we hit our lore articles, we have a little bit of housework to do. So we'll go back to our battle record. We can tick off paint, and we'll tick off playing, as I'll be doing that very soon. Just keeping an eye on my riders, make sure they dry straight, or straightish. So, here we go then. Issue 29. So we've got a couple of pages of lore and then a couple of pages of rules before we hit our game. So we'll start with cabals, cults and covens. Among the many warring groups and societies of Comora, there is an uneasy peace maintained not through idealism and cooperation, but by self-interest and survivalism. Amid the atmosphere of mistrust, the different groups are forced to rely on each other or face eventual death and the loss of their souls. The dark city of Comora is a twisted tangle of pacts, alliances, and intrigues. At any moment, the collapse of some agreement or other may lead to a rash of infighting among the many competing groups that make up their home there. This is no accident. The supreme overlord of the city, as Drubal Vecht, rules through manipulation and subtlety, leveraging the group's alliances and rivalries against each other to redistribute the power or extinguish threats. However, the needs of the Drukhari are too great for each group to become isolationist, and they depend upon each other for survival. In order to prevent their souls from draining away, each Drukhari replenishes themselves by feeding on the emotions of others, particularly pain. This complex process requires groups who risk their lives to capture a steady stream of new prisoners in real space raids, and it requires specialists to extract the utmost anguish from the prisoners once they are returned. All the while, Others must labour creating the weapons, poisons, and modifications that make this bloody work possible. Cabalite warriors push forward on a real space raid in search of new prisoners. Cabals. Cabals are large group organizations of warriors, and they form much of the military might of the Drukhari. Fierce competition rages among aspirants wishing to join a cabal, for even the most lowly Cabalite is granted the protection of the entire cabal. However, this is far from a guarantee of peace, for the cabals themselves are at constant war with each other. When they are not plotting or scheming against their rivals, the cabals direct their efforts to piracy and real space raids, bringing back a constant flow of prisoners and looted technology into Comora. Witch Cult. The witch cults are made up of warrior athletes who deal out pain and death in the arenas of Comora. They treat the gladiatorial contests as a high art, and they are famous for their intricate and balletic performances and the dire inventiveness of the game's designs. If this blood sacrifice were not carried out, no doubt the whole city of Comora would swiftly descend into anarchy and chaos, abandoning all pretense of peace as its citizens, starved of anguish, turn on each other for sustenance. The witch cults often accompany the cabals on real space raids, where they can bring their deadly talents to the battlefield. Where grace and gore meet, there is our release. Homunculus Covens. Deep in the bowels of Comora lie the layers of the homunculus covens. The homunculi lead in the modification of the flesh and the production of enhancing elixirs. But their true specialty is in the creation of life. Not only can they use esoteric technology to grow new Drukhari and create other horrors, but they can use the life energy of prisoners to return slain Drukhari warriors to life. It is this talent that gives them power in society, for all warriors must eventually strike a bargain with the homunculi. On occasion, homunculus covens even take part in real space raids, seeing them as an excellent opportunity to test out their twisted creations of horror and pain on unwitting worlds in their path. Units of racks march to war, watched over by their homunculi masters. So yeah, one of my favourite aspects of the Dark Elder, the homunculi covens. It's just a pity some of the awesome units, such as Urian Rakarth here and the Grotesques, are resin models and prone to, not being very good due to the casting of Finecast. The racks are plastic, fairly recent-ish, and the Talos and Kronos paint engines are plastic as well. One of the first plastic kits from the updated Eldar range. Yeah. And of course the homunculi here himself is an actual plastic kit, the only plastic character in the homunculi Coven range. So nice little range, just wish they were given a bit more love. New units, etc., updated kits and stuff. Moving on, we have a little more look at Comora. The Dark City of Comora is an ancient home of the Drukhari, and it has existed since before the Fall. Here many plots are hatched and much violence and debauchery are carried out. It is to this hell that the unlucky prisoners of the Drukhari raiding parties are brought to serve as both amusement and sustenance. The Dark City of Comora is a gigantic city of unprecedented scale, existing as it does in the Webway. Comora is not bound by normal dimensional limits and makes use of the hidden paths and labyrinthian connections to join its disparate districts into a nightmarish whole. The inhabitants of the city are primarily the Drukhari, murderous sadists whose bloodlust can never be quenched. However, there is also no end of pirates, bounty hunters, and alien mercenaries who brave the city in search of rich rewards for their service. The regions of the city are all marked differently from each other. Luxurious spires or private sub-dimensions of an Archon have little or nothing in common with the fetid slums that are nested between and around the better parts of the city. Even more dangerous are the parts of the city that have collapsed, either dimensionally or structurally. In these abandoned wastelands, a visitor might fall into a lake of boiling poison, be eaten by some lurking monster, or come under attack from the darkness itself. Asdrubal Vect. Amid a network of shadowy alliances, pacts, and conspiracies, one single Drukhari sits above them all, maneuvering and controlling the people below him like pieces on a board. Asdrubal Vect. He has held this lofty position for thousands of years, and he is hated, feared, and admired in almost equal measure by the residents of Comera. However, he does not rule by edict as a king might, for the society beneath him is made up of many organizations, each far too disconnected and self-serving. Instead, he rules with subtlety, manipulation, and brutality. The High Spires. Rising high above the slums below are the spires of Comera. The city long outgrew any sense of spacious comfort, and now star-scrapers and spires are piled over the undercity. The spires are connected by arches and gantries, about which fly flocks of scourges, especially engineered mercenaries who have had their bones hollowed out and wings grafted on, among other extreme body modifications. Not very nice creatures. Raidcraft workshops. The Drukhari depend on a network of raidcraft workshops, weapon forges, and toxin distilleries to arm themselves for raids. Each cabal that intends to make a real space raid will carefully study the planet they are about to attack before procuring the supplies they need to win victory and take prisoners. The workshops supply the advanced anti-grav vessels, the forges provide deadly weapons, and the distilleries provide wicked paralytics and toxins. Aelendrak. Among the shattered ruins and sprawling slums at the base of Comera's spires lies Aelendrak. This is a place of shadow and dread, where the darkness itself has gained a rudimentary sentience, stalking and flowing over intruders that dare breach its perimeter. Aelendrak is occupied by the mandrakes, semi-corporeal beings who live in both reality and a cursed other world, ebbing and flowing between the two as it suits them. So yeah, the awesome, pretty new mandrake models from Kill Team. Really gruesome sub-faction there. Gladiatorial arenas. Gladiatorial arenas provide not only the principal form of entertainment for the Drukhari, but also their main form of sustenance. For it is in the arenas that torment is meted out to prisoners for the masses to replenish their souls and the psychic energy that is released. The arenas themselves are architectural masterpieces, each designed to advertise the wealth and status of the witch cult that built it, and whose warrior athletes provide the murder and spectacle during the games. And there we have it. That's our lore section for issue 29. And that's it for this video. So we've got our last two, and I'm going to bring in our first four. And there we have our finished Wind Rider unit, and yeah, looking really good. It should come out, look a little bit better once we hit issue 30, and we get our Grag's Shade. But that's it for this video. Hope you've enjoyed the paint guide, and I hope you've enjoyed the lore. Up next then, we're going to have a look at the next few pages of the core rules, and we're going to try these guys out as we face off against hordes of termagants. Right, that's it for this video. All that's left for me to say is thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time on more Combat Patrol Carnage. Goodbye.